Dizzy was no longer surprised when she looked in the next room and saw a very unusual pony. The floor of the ballroom had been covered in a large white tarp, and a block of pure marble had been set in its center. A silver-coated pony was carving into the stone with a hammer and chisel. So he had a moderately sized horn, and at first glance he almost looked like Ponyville's resident librarian, Twilight Sparkle. But then she stuck out a wing to steady herself as she chiseled the top of the marble, and differences became apparent.
"A Pegasus unicorn hybrid?" muttered Raindrops. "Okay, so that's one sea pony, one null pony, one hybrid, and one double Pegasus, and one Gaia's Umbris bloodline. What? Is she collecting unusual ponies?"
"Not just a hybrid. Look at her wings," Shirley pointed. When the pony turned, Dizzy could see the body in bare detail. Most of it looked healthy, but her wings were an exception. They were atrophied and weak. Moved slightly as if she were a foal who didn't have the muscular strength to hold him steady yet. One of the left was also missing a few feathers. After a few glances, Trixie stepped forwards.
"Hello," she said. "We..."
With an audible growl, the pony wheeled around.
"I'm looking!" she snapped. "Don't interrupt me."
"We just want to say hello," said Carrot Top.
"I happen to know that Feisty Pussats gave strict orders to all her servants that none of us would be disturbed in the middle of our artistic endeavors. I'll see to it that she's notified that you..."
"Now calm down, Silver," said another pony. Dizzy turned to see that an orange-coated unicorn was lounging in one of the couches on the side room. She had a large tank filled with orange liquid in her hose, and she was stressing something on a pad that levitated before her. "Not every day that we get to sell our wares to new people." She rolled over and hopped to her host. "Hi, I'm Altarine, and this is Silver Sculptress. I work with volunteers and see sculpts. It's great to meet you." Maybe it was that she seemed to be the first pony in the hotel that seemed genuinely happy to see them. But Dizzy felt herself smiling at the unicorns.
"Nice to meet you too," she said. "We're the elements of harmony."
"The ones that saved us from Corona, that's so cool." Orange Green grinned. "I've never met heroes before. Is it true that one of you grew 30 feet tall and punched their pet dragon in the face?" Raindrops blushed and held a puff.
Sort of."
"That's so exciting," Orangine squeaked. "You know what? Heroes like you deserve something special. I'm gonna make you a glass of my super special orange juice." She ran to the tank and began pouring orange juice into cups. "Did you know this hotel has its own orangine? I didn't even know you could grow oranges this far north. But Vice said that this hotel was built to entertain all the big delegations. So they had to make sure it was absolutely everything any pony might want, so the delegates would be happy. I guess they got a bunch of delegates that like nature, because there's a little greenhouse at the end of the wing." She used her magic to rotate the cups under a continuous stream of juice which she poured from the tank. "The oranges up here are actually really good. I added a little magic, shoot them up, and squeeze them down." She held the glass to Ditsy. "Try some. It's the best orange juice you ever had."
"I don't know if..." began Shirley. Ditsy smiled. "Of course I'll try some. Thank you, Orangery."
She took a sip, and then stiffened at the heavy sensation that crashed through her mind. It was like a part of her had grown a tongue, and it was licking an orange simultaneously. It was like she was in a sea of orange juice, letting its citrusy scent waft up her muzzle, and its sticky pulp soaked to her coat. It was like she was on a beach, eating a slice of orange that was bursting with so much flavor, filled up her entire body. It was like she was one with the very essence of oranges. She came back to herself several seconds later. She saw everybody staring at her. She said, holding it up to her head.
"It tasted..."
She had to take another moment to think of how to describe it.
"Like you took the flavors from 100 oranges and concentrated into one sip."
Orange's smile grew. "So you like it?"
"I suppose..."
"Yay!" Orange cheered. "Now you try some." She served the glass of the Carrot Top's toast. The farmer glanced.
"I'm more of a carrot pony myself."
"I guess you're the mad scientist of your Earth colony," said Raindrops. "Ponies keep saying that, but I don't feel mad," said Orange. "I guess I'm a happy scientist." She giggled. "You know about the phone, huh? When did VP hire you?"
Vice-Ring Puissance, corrected Silver Sculptress. See, on that tile, only proper to stated, not abbreviated.
Orange-Ring shrugged, though Dizzy did notice a faint eye roll on her part. Okay, when did you start working for Vice-Ring Puissance? We're not her servants, said Trixie, a slight nose of exasperation in her voice. I'm sorry, but why does every pony here keep asking us that? Do you really never meet any new ponies besides your servants? What kind of artist colony is this?
Refuge.
The opposite Orange-Ring turned to Silver Sculptress, who, like Batty, hadn't looked up from her work.
The vault is a place where unusual and different ponies can go live their lives free of persecution, doing what makes them happy without having to hide themselves. There's a lot of ponies who could do great things, but can't, because they have both wings and a horn, or extra wings, or a tail instead of back legs. They aren't affected by magic. Before, ponies like us had to spend our time trying to fit in, so others would accept us. In the vault, we could be who we really are.
She finally turned back, her gaze falling on Dipsy.
Does that sound appealing to you?
Me? Asked Dipsy, taking a step backwards involuntarily. Why me?
I'm sure a pony with eyes like yours, beautiful though they are, has endured your share of bullying and hate, said Sculptress. Vice-Ring, I'm sure, knows it too. I could ask her if you'd be willing to let you move to the vault. Every pony you met will accept you as you are, not treat you like a freak. You could make true friends like you never had before.
The silver pony nodded.
You interested?
Dizzy felt like something slimy was being draped over her shoulders. There had been a few times in Philadelphia, during her wild youth, when drunken suitors would hit her on bars. This felt familiar, except more so. No, thank you, she said at last. Appreciate the offer, but I have friends. True friends, in Ponyville, where I live now, and none of them look at me as a freak.
Do you look at you at all?
Shouted Sculptress. Dizzy's mouth opened. She couldn't think of anything to say to that. Looking at her friends, they seemed at a loss for words, as well. Oh, brilliant comeback, Sculptress. Just brilliant. I am so proud of you. How long did you think of that one? How much effort did it take you to come up with that little comeback? Must have taken you hours. Oh, did I say hours? My apologies. I meant minutes. No. Seconds. Finally, Trixie said, I'm surprised we hadn't heard about this colony before. I think that would really count, even if it's just from ponies just yaks who said no. Oh, I haven't heard anything of anybody saying no, said Orange-Ring. I mean, the vault's one of the best places to live in the world. No taxes, no monsters, total security, she smiled. If you don't want to join, that's totally okay. It's not for every pony. But she's asked about 150 people so far, and I'm pretty sure all of them said yes. We got all kinds of folks, from hybrids to ponies with special bloodlines or manifestations of their magic, to creatures who aren't ponies, like a Baku tapir. If you don't fit in anywhere else, you're welcome here. If you don't mind me asking, asked Trixie, what makes you, Orange-Ring smiled warmly. Special? So yes, turns out I'm a hybrid too, unicorn and earth pony. Went almost my whole life without knowing it, but there it was, she chuckled. I actually almost didn't make it to the Vice-Ring's attention. I mean, she has agents looking out for pony like Bounty and Silver Sculptress, you know. Ponies who don't fit in and need a safe place to go. She never found me if she hadn't started testing all the other ponies in the province. Charlie blinked. I'm sorry. Testing? You know how there are some spells that can let you see a pony's tribal magic? That's Orange-Ring. They're useful if you want to see some ponies over-channeling or under-channeling or doing magic some other way. So Vice-Ring launched a big public health initiative in provinces and have unicorns scanned regularly. It's actually reduced over-channeling injuries by almost 20%, since ponies are catching it more often. But it turns out those spells can detect hybrids by seeing if a pony has multiple types of tribal magic. So, when I went in to get tested one day, well, That was when I learned I was a hybrid, and I qualified to live in the best place in Equestria. So Archie smiled. Yeah, that was a good day. And you're not seeing anything wrong with this? Uncomfortable silence once again filled the room before Karatov ventured. The fly stream brought all 150 you up here. Oh no, we wouldn't all fit in their airship, Archie giggled. Orsha didn't want to come alone, so she let him pick 7 friends. We all came with. The rest is still at the vault. Trixie frowned. You, Sculptress, Stream, Bones, Bounty, and the Sombra Dork, she said. Ooh, we're missing one.
The 7 friends are sweet, said Solar Sculptress. She won't come out for any pony except the Viceroy herself.
Arsene frowned. She had a bad life before meeting the Viceroy. She's very shy. I can try to introduce you later, but probably be best to not bother her right now. Dizzy saw Trixie pause and turned back to confer with Trixie. Then Orangey walked up, still grinning. It's nice to meet you, she said. You want more orange juice? I'm fine for now, but actually... A smile crossed Dizzy's face. As much as Sculptress as some of the other ponies made her feel nervous, Orangey at least seemed to be a generally nice pony. Can I take some home with me when we leave? I have a feeling my little Muffin might enjoy some. I'll pack you a bottle, said Orangey. Foals can't have too much orange juice. That's what I always say. What's the name of yours? Dizzy do, said Dizzy. Do you have any foals? Orangey tilted her head. Well, actually, Dizzy! Called Trixie. Don't get too distracted. We need to keep looking. Dizzy frowned, but quickly said goodbye to Orangey and went back to Trixie. What's wrong? We still haven't found Iceheart, and I'm starting to get worried. Come on. As he left the room, Trixie leaned in close to Dizzy. And, if you're getting creeped out by all this attention, you could take a break or something. I mean, I'd probably be weirded out too if other ponies kept focusing on me like that. Dizzy thought for a moment. Orangey was nice, but the rest of them... In all honesty, when Silver Sculptor's there, she felt almost like a zoo exhibit. Now that Trixie mentioned it, a short break would be nice. I'll find one of the servants and have them get my coat, and I'll step outside for a few moments, she said. Clear my head. Is he back in here in 15 minutes? Trixie nodded. You got it. Rising Pussas was standing in a snow-filled courtyard when she saw Dame Dizzy step outside. The courtyard was a small square set between the hotel's 4 wings that was open to the outside elements, illuminated only by the moon and a few torches that shone through the windows of the hotel. It was a dark and shadowy place. Dizzy's gaze passed over the dark corner in which Pussas was standing, without pausing for a moment. The Viceroy concluded that the mayor had missed her. She, however, could see Dizzy just fine. The younger Pegasus had stood under a lighted window. The male mare was wearing a new brown jacket that only a few scuff marks indicate use. It was a heavy jacket, the kind that cost money. So it was perhaps a superficial indication that Dizzy had some financial means. But that thought was belied by Dizzy's motions. She walked carefully through the deep snowdrifts, keeping a good bit of clearance not from the walls of the hotel, but from the trees and other objects in the courtyard. She walked so gingerly she was afraid of the coat. More precisely, she was afraid of damaging it. These were feelings Puissance well understood, though she of course never needed to worry about such things. She could imagine the male mare scrimping and saving for months, eating grass for lunch, and begging off on social services to accumulate enough bits to purchase a brand new jacket. Once she bought it, she was likely quite excited to try it on, imagining comfort which she could endure the most punishing winter weather. But as soon as the bits changed hose, doubt began to creep in. As she damaged the coat, ripped it in any way, then all that comfort could be lost as the wind slipped into the cracks again, chilled her to the core. Furthermore, she wouldn't be able to afford another such coat for some time. She could have blown her only chance. It would be condemned to the cold for mere months. So she had to move. She was wearing a coat made of teacups and eggs, hesitant to even brush it against another surface of fear of breaking it. It was almost sad, Puissance thought. It was worse, so unnecessary. Dizzy Deal was an element of harmony. She had saved Equestria multiple times over. She wanted a new jacket. All she had to do was look up some clothes and offer her friendship. Half of them would be so overwhelmed with their gratitude for their savior, they would give her a wonderful new jacket on the spot. Nearhav could easily be persuaded to part with it in exchange for some public endorsement by a national hero. Only she understood the kind of riches she could have. Ditzy would never be cold or hungry again. Busan shook her head. It's too bad some mares couldn't grasp such things. Busan, you are so going on my list. Of course, Busan was not among those mares. She glanced down at the ruby around her neck and smiled. If offered an auction, it would probably go for tens of millions of bits. Yes, he had picked it up for the price of a postcard. It had been several decades ago, only a few months after her parents had retired and Luna graced her with the title of Vicereine. She had taken to her duties with care and diligence, demanded of any decent member in the house of Obidjisagola. But, in her few free moments, she had begun traveling through her provinces and seeing what there was to see. She needed to know every detail, she had thought, about the territories Luna had graced her with the privilege of ruling. What better way to learn than to actually go to each of her villages, towns, and major cities and explore them for herself? That would give her a much better understanding of what she owed than reading some bureaucrat's report. As an added bonus, there were some astounding treasures she had forgotten, that in most unlikely of places, just waiting for a smart young mare like Busan to seek them out. The day when she had found the ruby had begun like any other expeditions. She arranged for transportation to yet another little town in Palermo, a farming community on the border, which had never produced any noble citizens, witnessing interesting events in his entire existence. Her jewel-studded carriage had deposited her just outside of town, and stretching to come back in the evening, she disembarked and begun to walk. After a quick circuit of the town to get the lay of the land, she sought out a citizen who looked like he knew something, and asked to see the most interesting treasures or sights the town had to offer. Citizens didn't always want to help her right away, especially if they didn't recognize her. But she was a Vicereine, and her special talent was authority. They yielded in the end. Sometimes they took her to someplace lovely, a little museum by the works of art by some skilled local painter, or a statue garden set in Borlick Park, or a library that contained some rare, forgotten works by great scholars. And sometimes the town had nothing of importance to offer, in which case she found herself looking at the sagging dance floor, which was the town's grandest social venue, or a rundown historical society, which only demonstrated the village's total lack of worthwhile history, or Equestria's third largest ball of twine. But this day was different. Busan found herself being led to the town's only 4-story building, and up 3 flights of narrow cramped stairs. At the top was a studio apartment, and in that apartment was a mayor who was richer than any of the big city elites Busan had met in her wanderings. The mayor hadn't wanted to talk to her either, not at first, but Busan knew how to invoke her authority. She was in the apartment within 5 minutes, and learned to document its tale soon after. The mayor's name was Red Rose. She had, as Busan learned over a few cups of totally deviled tea, married young to a rich old stallion who was on his last legs, and wanted a pretty wife to take care and comfort him in his final days. She played her part to perfection, dutifully tending to his every whim, ministering his increasing pain, and professing how fortunate he was to meet such a wonderful pony before he left the world forever. They even married at his hospital bedside a heartwarming ceremony. The stallion declared that he thought himself the luckiest pony in the world to be a wife who was so attentive and caring, even to one as sick and weak as him. When he died a month later, of course, he inherited everything. But then a funny thing happened. Red Rose, having gained millions of bits, found herself feeling something very akin to shame. She tried to bury herself in luxury, but even at its most decadent, her material gains couldn't make it feel better, nor, as it turned out, did donations of staggering sums to worthy charities. Beset by ennui and unease, she retired to a quiet life in an unknown town as she tried to figure out what to do with her life. Busan's judgment, she hadn't worked it out yet. The Vicereine hadn't cared one whit for the mayor's story, but her gaze had been drawn to a particular ruby sitting on the mantel as soon as he had entered. She knew well what it was. She studied noble gems and jewelry pieces frequently, knowing it was likely to come across some in her travels. She needed to know what they were in order to have a chance of acquiring them. The famous fire ruby of Inkblot, one of a set of 7 famous magical gemstones, was apparently one of the many possessions that Red Rose had inherited. Busan wanted that ruby, but she could tell, from Red Rose's meandering, self-pitying, deeply boring story, that money would be no help in attaining it. Red Rose didn't want money. She had too much of it already. Puissance would need to find another way. At the first time, she wasn't quite sure how. When her carriage finally brought her back to her own estate, Puissance convened a meeting of her advisors in confidence, demanded their advice. Some suggested she try to shame Red Rose, using the power of her office to call her out for manipulating a dying stallion into willing her his entire fortune, thereby driving her to donate the results of that manipulation to a suitable charity and penance. Since it's a charity that was owned by a corporation, that was owned by a trust, that was owned by a viceroy. Others thought she should look for Red Rose's friends and lean on them to urge Red Rose to give up the ruby. One suggested Puissance hire a burglar to steal the ruby and was fired on the spot. Puissance wanted that gem, but she wasn't going to risk all her other possessions and her freedom for it. Besides, she wanted that gem to be hers, and she had to keep it secreted away for fear of discovery. She woke up at night, terrified that some servant or janitor had recognized it and contacted the authorities. She felt a jolt of fear every time Luna summoned her in case it was to arrest her for that gem. Well, it wasn't really hers, was it? The gem wouldn't be hers until she could display it, plain as day, to the entire world if need be. Theft was out of the question. In the end, one of her father's advisors, a veritable old stallion named Winsome, had suggested. Red Rose seemed to want spiritual peace, he said so. Why not provide it? Find a monastery or religious order that would accept her and teach her how to cleanse herself of her sins. Most of those orders require novices to cast off worldly possessions. Puissance would be there to catch them when they fail. If they didn't, Red Rose would surely be grateful enough to the mayor who taught her how her soul could be saved, as he wouldn't begrudge her little present. The scheme worked perfectly. Puissance wrote to her spiritual leader in Nejab, a camel named Enduring Peace, who had long been a friend of the house of Odiberez Golo, and asked her to, as a favor, take on a new initiative. Enduring Peace, whose sex had been saved when Puissance's mother had successfully pressured other religious orders in Nejab to allow it to exist without fear of destruction, was only too happy to repay the favor. Red Rose's face lit up with what was likely her first genuine smile in years, when Puissance told her the news. She embraced the Vicene in a massive hug, thanked her profusely, and even wept with gratitude at having since found a good friend. She departed for her Enduring Peace's sake that very night, pausing only to insist upon giving Puissance some gift. Though Puissance said she didn't want anything, she let her gaze land on a fire ruby for a few moments. When she left that village for the last time ever, she did so with that gem around her neck, several more in her saddlebag to boot. Yes, thought Puissance, it had worked well for every pony. Red Rose couldn't be happier. She wrote Puissance every month, telling her about her new spiritual achievements and how she was becoming a better and better pony, all thanks to her friend Vicene. Puissance had long ago hired another pony to read and respond to those letters, of course. But it was quite an achievement to have a mare's friendship more than half a century later because of one single deed. Vicene had also seen to it that Red Rose's other property had, once she abandoned, made its way back into the stallion's other heirs. They were so grateful to her intervention that they had publicly praised her, completely unprompted. To Luna, when the princess arrived at Palermo on a mention to her, of course, Puissance had started a collection of ink blots, even the 7 magical gemstones, all for the price of a letter to Nejab. The thought of letters made her frown. Now she thought about it, she didn't think Red Rose had written her in several months. Something happened to her. Surely she hadn't died of illness or old age or anything. Puissance felt sure she would have been notified by Enduring Peace's successor. The secretary probably hadn't mentioned it.
Oh, Vicene, I didn't see you there.
Puissance's voice was broken out of her thoughts by Ditsy's voice. Dame Ditsy, she said, inclining her head slightly at the bowing mare. Don't worry about it. I was lost in my thoughts. Please do forgive an old mare her eccentricities.
Of course, said Ditsy.
May I ask what you're doing out here? Asked Puissance. I hope the hotel is to your satisfaction.
It is. I just wanted to fresh air.
Ditsy smiled up at the moon.
We don't usually have such heavy snowfall at Pineville. I've never seen anything like it.
Puissance nodded. I know there's light snow, she mused, especially fresh snow.
Me too,
said Ditsy. She found herself thinking of when she first come to Ponyville. An unwed pregnant mother that was fleeing the shame and scorn of all those who had known her in Philadelphia. It had been snowing then, too.
It's a clean environment, isn't it?
Leaves everything clean and gives ponies a chance to make new marks without worrying about the old.
Or to make no marks at all, Pusat said, her own thoughts miles away as well. Have you ever looked around, even a few hours after a snowfall, and see how much of it has gone grey as ponies trampled it? It's surprisingly hard to preserve fresh snow. A single hoofstep can ruin it. Last year, for my province's first snowfall, I issued a decree that no hoofstep was to be taken on any of my estates for a full week after the snow came down. Every day that week, I awoke to a pure sheet of white around my residence, stretching as far as the eye could see. To look at that perfect beauty, protected even as every other field was trampled under these hundreds of hooves. It was something quite extraordinary. The two mares were silent for a long moment before Ditsy said, "You don't mind me asking, aren't you cold, Vicing? You're not wearing a jacket." Rosa smiled and brought up one hoof to lift up her ruby and show it to Ditsy. This is that of Eekbrock's 7 magical gemstones. This particular stone, Fire Ruby, provides heat, as you could see. She held out a wing and waited a few snowflakes to fall on it, immediately evaporated. Keeps me warm without needing a bulky coat. Ditsy's eyes widened. "Incredible," she said. "Where did you get it?" "A gift from an old friend." Rusans lowered the gem and sighed. "As much as I enjoyed the snow, I feel like I should rest soon, so I'm ready for the wind to go tomorrow. Please excuse me, Dame Ditsy. Enjoy your night." "Of course, Vicing." Rusans flew up into the air and collided to the snowdrifts before landing by the door Ditsy had exited from. And Soldier noticed that Ditsy had used the door connecting to the west wing. Rusans had ordered them not to go, but that was fine. She knows inevitable the elements would meet the Volt ponies she had brought with her on this trip. But this way, she had at least gotten them to violate her request to respect her privacy, which she could use the elements to try to cause trouble for her later. Besides the Trixie offended the Volt ponies, what seemed almost to be her special talent, it was thus reinforced to them the idea that outside ponies, even heroes, would never understand them. That only in the vault they would be safe. Smiling to herself, Feisty Poussons entered the hotel. "Speaking of which, honey, I got something for stable tech you might want to look at." Ditsy watched the Feisty leave before slumping down. She hadn't meant to go off on a tangent. In fact, when she seen the Feisty, she had just meant to turn around and go back inside. But Poussons had been staring out to space for so long, Ditsy felt obliged to see if she was okay. Then one thing had led to another, and Ditsy found herself babbling about snow. She sighed. It had been a long day. Travel always took a bit out of her. And between the creepy hotel, the overbearing Feisty, strange ponies who think she was one of them, it was a lot to take in. She hoped he found Ice Heart soon so she could go to bed. Maybe everything would feel better in the morning. Sudden movement at the very edge of her peripheral vision. It was a snowdrift, she thought. Realized it wasn't drifting. It was just sinking slightly, like it was laughing at her. She turned towards it, saw it immediately go still, and began meandering in a general direction. When she reached it, she paused for a moment, glanced down and picked up the top of the snowdrift, wriggled across before sticking out snow to reveal a giggling foal. Specifically, a giggling foal who seemed to be half made out of ice. The colt had an orange coat, feathery wings, and straw-colored hair, but veins of cloudy ice ran all through them. Some large notes that looked more like veins of hair and feathers running through the ice. One of his eyes was a bright blue color, the other was glassy ice. When his tail flapped, bits of snow broke off of him and fell to the ground below. For a moment, Ditsy didn't know what to do. Then a foal burst in a big smile. The milk carrier couldn't help back. "Ah, you caught me," said the foal. "I thought it was real quiet." "You were," said Ditsy. "You're good at hiding." She set the foal down. "Ice Heart?" "Uh-huh," said the colt, nodding quickly. "That's me. And you must be Ditsy too." "I am." Ditsy noticed he was level with the foal. "Well, you know about me." "Of course I do," said Ice Heart, grinning. "You're the element of harmony with the really cool eyes."